small but enthusiastic crowd right now, and we may have some more students come in um, as we go along. But let's go ahead and get started. So this is our career chat on data science and analytics, and we are fortunate to have two accomplished center alums from that field. We have Stephanie Swartz, and she graduated in 2008, and she's the lead analytics consultant at Epsilon. Did I get that correctly?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. And then we also have Hannah Ball, who graduated in 2003, and she's a senior utilities economist at Tacoma Power. So first off, thank you both for joining us at a much earlier hour because you're both out west. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
But they are each going to talk a little bit about their career field and how they got there from center, and just general information, advice that they might have about how to get experience, how to break into the field, where the opportunities are, that kind of thing. And then we'll let them, we'll open it up for you guys to ask some questions. And we decided that Hannah would kick us off.
Yeah, I'm the old one, so I get to go first. Hello, everyone. I happened to go to center right as the .com bust was happening. So, really exciting times for technology and jobs in general. But I also like to joke that I went to college before data was a thing. So I have been fortunate enough to grow up with the industry, which has been really fun. But when I was at center, I double majored in Spanish and philosophy. And I noticed that was not economics or math or computer science. So I had the benefit of the delightful liberal arts education that center provides, and giving me a broad experience to topics, and then being able to kind of go into the world and apply it. I happened into data in a very sideways way. I started out working at a law office, organizing their exhibits for trials. So kind of started learning about metadata tagging. How do we make searches better? How do we find things we're looking for? What are we even looking for? Is this, kind of started doing some ranking of things to make it easier for attorneys to find, which is when I started using Excel. So again, I know that's surprising, but in college, I never used Excel one time. So yeah, kind of started doing that. And then I kind of I started working at a collection agency. They, I think, saw that I was working at a law firm and thought, attorney. And I was like, no. So my job at the collection agency was they would get these big, massive spreadsheets of account information that was extremely dirty data, just a huge mess. And so we would have to go in and clean it up, find the useful things, shape the data to fit into our database system, and then figure out how to bring in other things like addresses and all that, which is where I learned VLOOKUP and indexing and like very fun Excel things. I moved from there into energy, which is my true love. I was fortunate enough to be able to learn how energy works and how that works in a building, and then started applying more statistical data science-y methods to things. So I would look at utility bills and correlate them to weather and or other behavioral patterns as a way to decide whether or not a building was performing to model or not, as a way to kind of tune our models. I love that stuff. I love being able to use utility data to kind of figure out ways that we could help our clients save money. And I think my favorite thing that we discovered was one of the utilities had this crazy rate where if you had low consumption for 1 week of the year, you could save yourself thousands of dollars. And so we had our client basically shut their building down for that week and then ta-da, save lots of money. So very practical application of like, hey, if you really did do something to change your data, you will also realize that on your bottom line. And through that, I worked at McKinstry for a while, and that's where I started getting into more big data. So kind of buildings have lots of information control systems, many points. But again, just like with that collection data, there's so much junk that I needed to start learning how to find what was useful and bubble that up for my engineers so they could do something. So that's where I started playing around with tools like Tableau and SQL databases and MySQL and just all kinds of fun things to kind of help shape and kind of find those needles in the haystack. And so now I'm at Tacoma Power, where I get to play with all the data, which is my favorite thing in the world. So that's not just energy data, though. It's now also that includes like employee data or financials data. Also includes tracking the health of fish. So our power source is hydropower. And so salmon are this very endangered species that is very important to everything out here. And so we have a whole division of people whose sole job is to pay attention to salmon. And so I'm really excited because that's my current like new area of exploration where I get to learn about the salmon life cycle and how can we use data to help us continue to improve their life. So super fun. My job, though, is not so data sciencey, but more data visualization and data storytelling. So, right, so like, while the math is important, as far as like, I need to be able to understand the math in order to be able to say like, yes, we can say that, no, we can't. It's kind of more important to then be able to translate that math into some sort of thing that non-math people understand and can actually do something with. So I spend a lot of time kind of like visualizing the data and then helping people take action from that data. So I think while the math part is cool, it's not something I spend a lot of time in. So we have other way better, more computer sciencey types to build the models and do the machine learning and all the crazy things. Even though I sometimes feel like that's over developing a thing because I'm a little bit old school. So like why build a cool algorithm when you can just look at it and say whether or not that's a real thing. But I know it's important, and as that kind of that is a growing field, as that gets better and more useful, we'll start actually being able to use that more on the action side because it's less junk. So as far as like things that I found at Center that are useful in my career, as a philosophy person, taking an ethics course or two, I think is going to be really important because I think as a data scientist and data visualizer, it's really important to understand the implications of what you're showing to people and making sure that you are adhering to a moral code. So, you know, I don't think the industry itself has a very well established like creed, but I think as a data scientist, you should have rules of operation that include like not asking people to do more data entry than is required. Um, okay. So, and other things of like making sure that I am paying attention to what voices are not at the table to make sure that like we're carefully saying what we can know and what we can't know, right? So being very clear about that. So I think ethics is extremely useful here. Another thing, a class that I took that I find to be useful every day is symbolic logic. So that's a math philosophy class, but what it taught me was how to turn common language into code. So, right, so it helps you start to think in that formulaic way of like, okay, I make an argument, and now what does that look like? How is that correctly said as an if then? And also helps you kind of start to think about what are the correct, like, is the thing that I'm drawing from this particular calculation actually what I'm looking for, or is it just kind of a false hole? So symbolic logic is, I use that every day. And then I think the other class that I found to be really helpful and useful was sociology, which is just a great class to kind of get you into exploring something that you're very familiar with, living in a society, but in a more kind of scientific, statistical way, right? So that's where you kind of look at studies and conclusions and dabble into that statistical significance, but in a way that like translates how you feel into some data, which I think is part of, I think as data scientists, it's something that we are particularly positioned to be able to help people do, is to turn this gut feeling and lived experience into ones and zeros. And I think that class was helpful in kind of helping me start to see the possibilities of how we can do that within my own experience.
I think you're on mute.
All right. Well, that was good. That was really interesting how you linked some of the liberal arts to data science. That's not always easy to do. Okay, Stephanie.
Okay. I might need a few more prompts than Hannah did as to what's next, just FYI.
Sure.
But so I graduated in 08. I did have a little bit more of a math background. I was an economics major and a math minor. But similar to Hannah, data just wasn't where it's at right now. I definitely think I had an interest in it, but like wasn't quite sure where to take it. So I actually was a 08 Teach for America core member. And so I was in Teach for America. I stayed in my placement school for about 6 years. I was kind of looking for what's next. And right around that time, a lot of these universities were starting these business analytics programs. And so ASU started a 1-year in-person business analytics program. And I was in the second cohort of that. And so stopped teaching and went back to school full-time for 1 year, which for me really worked. I know now there's a lot of online ones, part-time ones, but I've even talked to this about friends, like the in-person just worked for me and dedicating some time to it. If you're kind of thinking about how do I get into this or what's the next thing, I know there's a ton of options out there. So, and after that, I was hired by Epsilon and I've been an analyst and moved up to analytic consultant. And you might be like, well, what does Epsilon do? So we're basically a data-driven marketing company, and I'm primarily aligned to our People Cloud Messaging, which is our email marketing software. So we deploy millions of emails every day. When you tell an Uber driver what you do, they said, oh, I finally found someone to blame for all those promotional emails. So that's me. I analyze those emails, and a lot of the things that Hannah was saying are very true. Even in email marketing, I use Excel a ton. I work in a database probably 50% of my time. And my whole goal is to get the data to a size where I can open it in Excel and then create a story off of that and find insights from there. And then I also work a lot in Power BI and Tableau and creating those visualizations and those stories. I also am not so much on the modeling side. I used to think that was somewhere I wanted to go, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable in the data storytelling and the visualization side. I think similar to Hannah, I think there's over a lot of engineering, because a lot of things can just be found at looking at a graph and pulling out insights. And thinking back to my liberal arts education, being able to like cohesively write insights and tell someone what you're seeing in the data is huge. That's a lot of times where people will be like, could you just send those insights again? Like they don't want the Excel, they want the insights. So that's definitely a lot of value in that. So, and then as far as an important class, probably not. Maybe I should have known this, but I didn't take computer science until spring semester of my senior year. And I really regret that. I wish I took it a little sooner because I did really enjoy it. And I probably would have taken a couple more classes. But now I'm learning from Hannah, there's a few more I should have even taken. So if you want me to come back, I'm willing.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it. Yeah, I hope I can answer any questions. Yep.
Okay. So do you guys have any questions? Eric or Vatsy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So of course, like Stephanie, you broke in 08, an unfortunate time, I guess, to be trying to get hired, of course.
Yeah.
And Hannah, 03, around the like you said, with the .com era, different very different eras of breaking in for sure. But if you had to do it all over again today, what would be like the advice that you would give yourself?
Good question.
I guess I would say, just there is no plan for this. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like college is like follow the plan, do the thing, and the real life facts are good luck. So I think the path I followed was the next logical step, and I think if I had been a little more flexible in deciding what the next logical step was, I think it would have been less stressful. And also just really diving into a breadth of experience, right? And so like you don't have to get into the one job that will matter right now. I did not go to grad school, and I continue to be a thing of like, should I, shouldn't I? But I want to do the learning thing, but like I feel like at this point I don't want a stressful job that would require an MBA. So like, it's fine. But kind of just looking at, kind of what are the experiences that I want to have, and then chasing those versus like what is the career path that I want to be on. Because I think if you had told me as a junior or senior at college that I would have this crazy title and doing this really cool stuff with data, I would have been like, that does not sound likely. So I think I couldn't have imagined it. So just kind of follow your path, and then kind of reach out and just see where it takes you, because this is a new industry. So like the jobs we have today are not going to be the jobs you have in 10 or 15 years.
I think maybe I would have liked to articulate it better to others while I was still in college, what I was thinking about with data, because obviously I work in it now, and I have colleagues here that have been here for 10, 15 years. So obviously it existed, but I just don't think I was articulating it enough or to as many people to really figure out what it was. So maybe just talking to more people. I think this is obviously a great opportunity for that, but instead of just Googling, which I probably did a lot, but actually talking to someone probably would have worked better.
I think
Yeah,
the other thing is really double down on your liberal arts piece. Like there's a lot of like people don't know, and so just leaning into the skills that you have picked up at college, and really just like, this is how it helps me with data. I think Stephanie talked about that, like people don't want the Excel, they want the written insight, and you learn that really well at Center, is how to write a good argument. And so like just that piece alone, if you can, like to Stephanie's point, this is the value I bring, I'm gonna make this data exciting, is really gonna help too.
Good answers. Good answers. Interesting. Yeah, Vati, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to ask, I'm also very interested in mostly data visualization, not so much the data analysis part of it, because I feel like because of the model that you build, or seeing the trend that happens, you can learn a lot of information from it. So what do you suggest as a trajectory to, keep opening my mind regarding that? Because I'm really considering going to either data journalism or any kind of career path that allows that. So what is your advice on following that kind of career?
Yeah, I think there's a million data visualization tools, so I just think it will keep growing. Tableau, I think they might have a student edition, but I know a product license is pretty expensive. Even at my work, it's hard to come by. But Power BI, you can just download off the website and start creating visualizations. And I like it a lot because it's very similar to Excel. Once you get used to Excel, Power BI has a lot of similarities. So I think that's a good next step from Excel. And then also I've been Googling, there's a book called Data Storytelling with Data that I really want to read. So that might be another good book to look into about visualizations.
Yeah.
Could you put that maybe in the chat, or would that?
Yeah, I haven't read it. I want to read it, but
Okay.
My advice for that is to just practice, 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 practice. So working with data, working with different data types and stories, and working with tools and techniques. I'm also primarily Tableau. I work at the government, and so like we have a big old government license, which is very fancy. At my previous job, similar to Stephanie, it was hard to come by with a Tableau license, and they use Power BI primarily. Those tools are very different in feel, and kind of it's really fun actually if you look at all the COVID dashboards, see
they're
what
a
the
good
tools
place to
are out
start.
there.
Yeah.
It's a great play. There's so many. Some of them are awesome. Some of them are terrible. How would you redesign stuff? I think is also another really great thing. I'm going to post a link. There's this thing called Workout Wednesday that actually is a thing that they give you a data source and like a thing or a technique to do, and it's a really great way to build particular and specific skills as you kind of get there, because I think there's a little bit of like, what can I do? But then just kind of as you learn those techniques, start applying them to data that you see, and just it takes a lot of work to build a good visualization that is like seamless and feels awesome, and it's gonna take practice. That being said, it is data journalism is, I think, fantastic. Again, with the whole COVID thing, I think it's been a really fun way to see the breadth of what is out there. I think Financial Times is my personal favorite as far as like how they visualize the pandemic and the sort of information they're telling. So I think that's another thing of like finding visualizers who kind of are out there pushing things and then copy them. Like that's my advice is to duplicate what they're doing as a way to learn what they're doing and then make it your own. So that's just start doing it. Is my advice.
I second the COVID dashboards. It's made it easy to explain to my mom what I do. I'm like, look at one of those. Except email opens. Maybe not as.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So I had another one. So I don't know how often you guys are working with like relatively like entry level or low level positions of data scientists, but if you do, what would you say is like the thing that sort of helps get them along the right track? Like what helps give them success that sets them apart from others?
One thing I've noticed is like maybe reminding that it's not an assignment, like just don't hand it over to me when you're done and then have me grade it. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily what they're thinking, but like sometimes I feel like that. Like it's not a test. You can ask me if you're stuck on a problem or like need help. So like, don't be afraid to ask questions while you're working on it.
100,000% underline that. I think that's been the main issue that I've noticed with entry level intern types is they go away and work in their own desk silo. And what I feel like out here, when we're not graded, group projects are the norm. And you get so much better results when you kind of say, hey, here's what I'm looking at. What do you see? Hey, I need a consult, especially virtually. I've loved it because it's super easy for someone to call me and share their screen. And now I'm like standing behind them at their desk and we can actually work through what works and what doesn't work, because you can get really siloed into what you're doing. I think the other thing is I want to see you do more than the brief, right? So like I want to know that you're actually asking questions of the data while you're working with it. So if I give you an assignment that's like, clean this up, it's a mess, like, I want you to clean it up, but I also want you to be like, I was noticing every time I see this, that there's this other thing that's happening. What do you think about that? Right. So it tells me you're not just doing the assignment, you're actually applying yourself to what you're seeing. And you're kind of making it more, right? Because that curiosity, that making connections, that even if you make up a story. So I think people who I see who's like, so here's what's going on with this data, right? And they tell me a story. I want to hire them, even if their story's wrong, because again, that tells me you're like using other parts of your mind besides the actual like applying the code in a way that will help us build more beyond what's just being asked of us.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of like where the whole liberal arts comes into things. Like right now I'm taking an environmental ethics class. So we're asking these really critical questions about like, what responsibility do we have to nature? Are humans different than nature? This, that, and the other. And so we're asking questions beyond just like, simple yes and no. And I feel like that's sort of along those same lines. You're not just looking to get the project done. You're looking to say yes and also this thing.
Yeah, totally agree. Whenever I deliver anything, I include a few bullet points about some other things I saw in the data beyond just what they asked for. So I think that's back to those insights are what people pick up on the most.
Oh yeah, that's definitely my boss is like, I have an assignment right now that I'm like, I don't have time for that. And she's like, I need you. I just want you to look at the data and see what you can see. Right. Which sounds crazy because it's like, I don't have any actual assignment. I just get to go out like data diving. And so it's great, but that's the value, right? Because we have computers that can like go control F, find the thing, but they can't find that. That's interesting. Let me look that up, right? And so I think as where we want your new eyes, we want your new ideas, we want your particular perspective of you connecting this to something that I haven't thought of or seen. That to me is hugely valuable because like somebody was talking about blind spots, or maybe it's a podcast I listened to, but like we all have blind spots, and so together we can try and reduce those blind spots better.
Did y'all, Vati, you had another question, right, about women in data science? Did y'all see that? She, I think, put it in the chat.
I think one of the, I'm going to say fortunate things about data science is it's pretty new. So I feel like there's a good mix of men and women in it. So I haven't felt anything too unique about being a woman in data science.
Yeah, I mean, there's women who code. I think it's more the more you get into the technical coding, machine learning, algorithm stuff, I think the more tech bro it gets. I think another thing that might, kind of just sometimes the visualizing side can be seen as softer and so not so male, which again I think is terrible. It is very much a science and very technical, but I think to Stephanie's point, like there's a lot of really great groups. Like there's women in Tableau, women who code. I also do think that we have reached the point of awareness of the problem enough to where like we can talk about it. And so it's okay for me to say as an employee, you boss just gave me inconsistent feedback. You said I should both be less aggressive and more aggressive by using different words. What do you want from me? Right. And so like there's a little, it's much easier now to kind of approach some of those things. Just because the conversation, I mean, I live in Washington State. And so there's a little bit more progressive atmosphere in a lot of ways. So I'm not feeling that. That being said, I am frequently the only woman in the room. So, like I know there are other women out there who are doing amazing and great things, but not necessarily where I'm at right now. So kind of being aware of that and owning that and advocating for more women to be at the table and to see the technical in what they do. I think that's the thing where I'm hoping we can really start to bring people along is like, you are already technical. So like own this space. It's not scary. So yeah.
Yeah, actually I've been to a few women in analytics, and I'll put that here, webinars. So that's definitely a resource. They have a data visualization contest too, so.
Other questions? You guys are giving such complete answers. It's making the crowd go quiet. I'll ask a question, a more general one, as the career counselor. Oh, here we go. We got one more person coming in. As the career counselor in the room, and I know other people are going to watch this, what strategies would you have? Maybe some best strategies or advice if somebody's looking to get some experiential education for this career. Like as a student, you know, you're, okay, I'm going this direction. What kind of places would you look at for internships? That types of thing, I guess.
I don't know if it's standard now for a college student to have a LinkedIn, but I mean,
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that would be a good resource for internships and everything. And everyone tells me keep it updated. So I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Okay.
And then as far as a class, I didn't talk about econometrics, but I feel like in economics, that was a big class where like we had to write up every week, where we're just doing a lot of the things we're talking right now about on a weekly basis for provided data sets, which, you know, it's hard to get your hands on data that's meaningful and able to do something with. So take advantage of it in your coursework while you have it.
Okay.
Yes. And then I think just like internships, just every place right now, if they don't have a specific data position, is or should be thinking about it. And so every single place, hospitals, healthcare, energy, marketing, lawyers, I mean, like just I can't think of a single industry where data is not a thing. And so it's not like you need to be at Microsoft or Google in order to be able to do this stuff. Like they're anywhere. And even if you get like a random, like I said, my first job was more data entry and like categorization. That was a thing that definitely started being very useful to just a practical understanding of how you know how you organize data model. So, you know, working in a library is data science. So, you know, just kind of all of that stuff you can turn, even working at like doing inventory is gathering data. So, you know, I'm part of me is like, I don't know, just everything. But I agree, LinkedIn is important. And then doing stuff like Workout Wednesday, I think is a really great way to kind of get access to regular data sets and just kind of get experience with the tools, you know, kind of build that. I had one intern who like had a GitHub that he shared with me that was kind of fun to show me projects that he had already done. So it's not necessary, but you know, if you have like side projects or stuff you're doing with nonprofits, you know, share that stuff. It's really cool.
So really just try to offer and put yourself in positions wherever you're at to work with data, because it all kind of translates. But there's not like certain industries that are more prone than others to be using that.
I think some industries are more mature than others, right? And so like if your goal is to like learn from someone who's been there, done that for a while, probably you're going to be better served to be in the tech side of things where there's like they're more accustomed to working with big data. If your goal is to like see what's out there and to build a thing, then some of the less mature, the smaller kind of medium-sized businesses, you're going to have more opportunity to have that broad experience at the like start to finish, data cleaning to organizing to coding to visualizing to all the things, right? So just kind of what do you want to do?
I actually think that connects a little bit with the what's the most important language to learn for data visualization. Because if you're at a big tech company, they're going to own all the things. I use a lot of SAS, which is actually it's a very expensive program. So they have a student version, but most people aren't just going to have that on their local desktop, or a small business isn't going to have the funds to buy a SAS license. So obviously Python and R you can use without cost. And then, but also Excel. I know it's kind of, but like that's something pretty much everybody has. So if you're at like a small company and trying to make inroads using data there, being able to use Excel and pivots and all that might be your first line there, because they might not have access to all these other expensive tools.
100%. I would say Python more than R. I feel like R is starting to be really specialized, whereas Python is kind of more broadly useful. Right? R is very statistically focused, whereas I think Python is a little broader. But all the languages are basically the same. Very small variances between them. I use a lot of SQL because I have SQL databases. So kind of that's how I organize my data. But I'm learning Python right now actually because I want to do a couple cool things with it. But doing equations in Excel will give you the foundation to be able to use Power BI, Tableau, SQL. Like it's just like it's all variations of the same thing. And Stephanie's point, if you work for a big company, they're probably going to have some proprietary thing that you're going to have to learn anyway. So just being comfortable with like, okay, here's I'm gonna approach that. Yes, I have the skills to learn a thing, which I feel like liberal arts equips you with. So like you're good.
I think something that's really interesting about like my major, they announced a data science major since you guys graduated. That I think they announced that back in the fall or spring of 2019. But what's really interesting to me about that is that not once have I used Excel in any of my data science or any of those related classes. So I think you guys might be like hitting the nail on the head that like there's a lot of over engineering nowadays and sort of like fitting to the data, so to speak, and like trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be. Like, I'm doing super complex machine learning. But then like for my senior project, I did this logistic regression machine learning model based around data that I had gathered on sports analytics for Center. So it's like, it's a lot more simple whenever you're actually doing the applied version, I feel like, but yeah.
I would say make sure you can use Excel because if I would be shocked if I encountered someone who's like, Excel what? I'd be like, I'm sorry, we can't work here. So
there's actually a lot of TikTok. There's a Miss Excel on TikTok and Instagram that I follow. She gives quick like shortcut key tips. So there's definitely trying to modernize Excel, I guess.
I'm fortunate that I do know some Excel, but yeah, it
Okay.
was super strange to me that not once in any data science class did we even open Excel. It was very odd to me.
I don't even know how I would start. Like I think when I like to say I'll do anything in Excel, but I won't do pivot tables. I hate pivot tables, but kind of as you grow, like Excel is the most common denominator across all of the work I've had. But there are definitely better tools, right? So to Stephanie's point, getting your data small enough to fit into Excel, that's an actual thing. How many rows, Stephanie, can you have, right? Like 1.6.
You don't want to know how many rows I've tried to put in Excel.
So it's Excel is getting better and better. But yeah, being able to, again, just be that flexible with what tools are available to you, and then being able to adapt to them. I came across a really cool tool that it's called FME, that basically is like Excel, just really buff. And I was having trouble with doing some data manipulation in Excel, and I did an FME, and it was just like done. And I was like, oh my God. Helps me quit my Excel habit. But that's, again, not a tool that is widely available. And so you just got to be able to, because companies will be like, well, what would you suggest, right? And so that's where you get to bring in your cool stuff, and they're like, oh, that's $10,000, can't do that. So
I use Python primarily actually to pull from APIs. That's what I use it primarily for. But I definitely use that. And then you mentioned SQL. Yeah, I use SAS as the software, but they have a procedure within it called Procedure SQL. And so I spend a lot of time in SQL too.
All right, any more questions? These have been some good ones. I saw we had one person come in a little bit later. Sharon, if you have any questions, now's your chance. Not to put you on the spot.
Good.
You good? Okay. Well, closing thoughts. Do you guys have any closing thoughts for us?
Oh, I don't think I have anything too profound, but like, I love my time at Center. I learned so much, and I think about it a lot. So I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm glad I found my way to it. So hopefully this helped.
oh yeah, same. Stephanie earlier was like, if you want me to come back and learn, I will. I'm always down for that. Center was a great just experience for me, opened my eyes to so much. And I think without Center, I would not be able to be where I'm at, because of the way that Center taught me how to look at the world, how to do research, and just how to ask questions. Which, and again, that's the thing, like my top things that my boss wants me to do is like, I just want you to go to this meeting and ask questions, ask your questions. And I'm like, what does that even mean? So, just kind of the skills you think you need are not necessarily the skills that end up being the ones. And so just really kind of lean into who you are, take those experiences, and also be prepared to wait a lot, because it takes a while to pull data. So like like while this meeting is going on, I'm like pulling an extract, and it's like,
Yeah, I got
31
something running
million
in the
rows.
background.
And
Yeah.
so it's just like, you're gonna have to do that, and like just be prepared to do the thing, and hopefully it won't mess up your computer too much. But it is what it is.
They're all remote desktops, so don't worry. You won't.
That's fine.
But you do open some of those big Excels and you start to hear it and you're like, oh, okay. The process they're going.
Well, Stephanie and Hannah, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and you guys actually made data science interesting. So we very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, if you at any time, do not hesitate to reach out. I love answering questions, kind of talking through stuff, looking at stuff. That's one of the favorite things that I do, is like doing consults and stuff. I love this stuff. And so,
Are you guys both in our career mentor network by chance? Do y'all know about that? I'll send you a little email about it where you can sign. I'll have, if you're interested, I'll send it to you, because it's something we have where students who are wanting to connect with alumni about the career. So I'll do that. All right, guys, we finished early, and thanks again. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much for the
you.
insight, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.